Drive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Chris Johnston coming up. Our best bets later in the hour on the Lakers and Luka's debut tonight. The Leafs are now off with the rest of the NHL for a couple of weeks, and they lost on Saturday night in Vancouver. They always lose in Vancouver, always. And yet they go 3-1 on the trip. Positive trip in terms of points. Right? You would have taken that every single time. Craig Berube, I think, was pretty happy with the way his team played overall. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. But you get 6 of 8 points. You're comfortably in a playoff spot. You're in second in your division. And once you get back from the break, it is go time, though. It is go time. Yeah. The trade deadline will be here before you know it. We're less than a month out from that. They're going to have less than 30 games to play.
Less than 30 games to play total.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone's going to be in the same boat. Like, the Leafs have played 55 games. They got 27 games left. Wow. So this before you know it, it's April, man. Like, it moves quick now.
Big time. And you're playing every second night, it feels. They've still got 2 more trips out time zone-wise or whatever. Mm-hmm. They got to continue on. You got 3 of 4 on that road trip. That was good for them. Because, again, you're looking every night. Like, now Tampa's won 4 in a row. They're 2 points behind you. Like, now, but Ottawa's lost, what was that, 3 in a row?
3 in a row down in Florida, yeah.
I did 2 of them. They lost Saturday against the Panthers. So Panthers are right there.
Yeah, you said the deadline's coming up, Hayes. Like, somebody asked me this morning. Said, do you think the Leafs would be all in this year on the deadline? And I'm like, I don't even know asset-wise what that would look like. Like, I don't even know what all in would mean.
We have this conversation every year, and exactly that. It's so easy to say, yes, you're all in. What does that mean? Like, you're not trading every prospect and every pick you have. You're not reckless.
I think we've had this beef before where you kind of have a problem with all in or the term all in.
Well, here my issue in the past has been that I didn't love the teams, or I felt like there were 2 or 3 other teams in the East, let alone the West, where I just didn't think they were going to get through them. So I thought it would be more prudent to hold on to your best assets, poke and prod, make a move or 2. But I look at it this way. Like, there's this conversation going on in the market about the third line center, right? And this doesn't only apply to the Leafs, it applies to every team. But every year it's, you got to go out and get this guy, you got to go get that guy, give up a first, at what point are they going to draft and develop someone who is going to take that spot? And that's what you want. Like, that's what Florida had. They had Lundell in the third. They drafted him. They drafted him, developed him. He'd be a second-line center on half the teams in the league. But they were so good up the middle of the ice with Barkov and Bennett, they said, you're third line. They didn't have to trade a first to go get somebody like Braden Shen or Ryan O'Reilly or whatever.
And he turned out to be a damn good player.
Absolutely. Right. And that's the thing with the Leafs is they've traded so many picks, and they don't have a great farm system. They don't. They have... they've got some pieces, but right now it seems like Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, and I'm not sure what else. And then you have picks in the future. And at some point, you need to filter through your own guys. They did that with Nyes. Nyes was a great pick. He came right out of college, hasn't spent a day in the American League. Great pick, great player. He's contributing greatly. Awesome. Who else do they have? Like, on defense, they have nobody. They have Morgan Riley. They drafted him 11 years ago. They have Joseph Woll.
Got the goalie, yep.
At some point, I just feel, and it's not right now, so I guess, this is ultimately a moot point because they don't have that opportunity right now. But at some point during the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era, and they're 9 years in, it would have been great if 3, 4, 5 guys showed up through the system, drafted and developed, where you're like, pluck him in, and then you don't have to go chase every single year.
Isn't that where Nick Robertson was supposed to come in? Like, that's, you're looking at guys like that. I understand. You don't hit on everything. But I think if you are, and I do believe you have to be quote-unquote all in, whatever that definition is. But if you're talking about the players that are being bandied about, and I don't, I'm Ryan O'Reilly's, the Scott Laughtons, you name it, Nazem Kadri, whoever, on your wish list, right? You're not getting them for Dennis Malgin. It's Easton Cowan. It's, Fraser Minton. It's going to be players like that.
Yep.
Depending on who's going to go the other way as far as what the team you're trading with wants and covets. So you might have to. It's a big decision. Do you want to just part with one of those young guys that potentially could be plug-and-play guys, or you've got to find it internally or find a trim around the edges and go, we're not going to pay a king's ransom, but we are going to get a guy who can play fourth line and third line. Maybe, at that.
That's what I've been curious about. Like this third line center they're after, whether it's Scott Lawton or somebody else. Like, so you're telling me if they acquire that player, like a guy like Fraser Minton or Easton Cowan's going out the door for that particular player? Is that what I'm to believe?
That's the thing. That seems like an overpayment for a guy who's a third line player.
Yeah, but who are those guys yet? You know what I mean?
No, I understand that.
Like Fraser Minton, what is his ceiling right now?
And we don't have that answer.
Exactly.
We don't have that answer.
So, we covet them because we watch them in training camp, and there's hype around them. Cowan's obviously great junior player. Yeah, as it translate, I don't know, didn't look great in the World
And the other
Juniors.
thing, Jamie, is you have to ask yourself: can Fraser Minton, by the end of the season, can he step in and play third line center?
Maybe.
It's something you have to ask yourself, the assessment of your own player.
Right. And I think what they end up doing will give us the answer on that, right? Like if they feel like they've got to move and get somebody, then they'll be answering it with their actions. You know, and I think what's clear, we talked about it last week, they have 6 forwards that really contribute. The big 4 who we know, and then Knies and Bobby McMahon. And the rest of it, they just don't know who to play where and what they're getting. And that's the problem. Like, they got issues here with some guys where they're like, I don't know where to play this guy.
Yeah, Max Pacioretty has, completely fallen off a cliff.
Completely fallen off.
Yeah.
And Max Domi, they have no idea what to do with Max Domi. They have no idea. None. You can tell. They don't know where to play him. They don't know where he should fit, how he should fit, what he should do. Here's Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. CJ, the term all in, it gets thrown around, every single year with every market, especially contending teams. How would you define it from a Leaf perspective, and do you think they'd be comfortable with going all in to make moves for this current team in belief that they'd actually do some damage come playoff time?
Yeah, I think that they would be. What it depends on, and I think this is kind of at the heart of what, the bit I heard you guys talking about there is, who is that all in? Like, my sense is the Leafs don't even have a full picture yet of what's available at the trade deadline. I don't think it's a case where they have one target. Obviously, they have a list of names of players that could potentially fill, especially that third line center role. But, it seems to me that they need to figure out who's selling and what they're selling before, you're thinking about what you're giving up. But, I don't think there's restrictions or limitations. But if they're giving up one of their top prospects, I mean, it's for a clear upgrade. I don't see them. I mean, they've still got draft picks. You've got a first-round pick next year. I mean, I think there are other moves that they can make that don't involve, Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton. I think if you're giving up one or both of those players, potentially it's in a pretty significant deal. And so, at this stage, we're a little inside 4 weeks now to the deadline. Obviously, don't expect too much action league-wide on the trade front to happen during this Four Nations tournament. So, this is a time for the Leafs and other teams to take a look at what's out there and to figure out what they're going to do. But as of this moment, I don't get the clear sense that the Leafs know which direction they're going yet with, what kind of player they're going to get.
Well, like we were saying, let's say that they load up the top 2 lines, okay? And it feels like Berube's very comfortable with Knies, Matthews, Marner. It's been pretty consistent all year. When he's gotten away from it, he's gone back to it. And let's say McMahon, Tavares, Nylander, for argument's sake. I think Steven Lorentz and David Kampf will be 2/3 of the fourth line. Like, I'm pretty certain that'll be the case. That leaves a third line and a third winger on the fourth line, which, as of right now, CJ, you might have a different answer. I have no idea what that looks like. I have no idea what the combination is. I have no idea how to get the most of it. And I think that's what's driving this third line center conversation, is what they really need is someone that can actually be an impact there. Like, actually a good player, like Braden Shen, Nazem Kadri. It's like, that's a real player. And then you'll figure out who's going to play on the wing with them. That's my sense. Do you sense the Leafs kind of look at it the same way? Yeah,
I think that's, if you're Brad Treliving or in the front office working with Brad, I mean, that's what I would call the ideal scenario. Because clearly, let's face it, I mean, this team, we've all watched the playoff years again and again, not to relive that, but a lot of times it's come down to not having enough offense. And so, I think that they're looking to have a little bit more punch in the bottom half of the lineup, certainly than we've seen to start the year. And some of the trouble does kick in for the reasons you mentioned. Max Domi's, not produced very much at all this season, endured 2 really long stretches, goalless stretches. So they don't have the right fit, it appears, at least right now, for him in the lineup. And so I'm with you. I do think that ideally you're adding someone on that third line that obviously you trust defensively, but also, might be part of a unit that can score some goals at 5-on-5. I mean, we know ultimately the team's got to be carried by the guys making the big bucks and the ones that have filled the net for years and years and years in the regular season. But, I think they're going to try to help out that group to have a little more depth, because right now it just feels like, certainly they have lots of NHL players on the roster, but it's not clear how they fit beyond those top players you mentioned.
So, CJ, do you get a sense that they would be leaning towards somebody that could be, we'll call him a third-line center, but maybe could be a 2, like a 2-3 instead of a 3-4, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think that's the ideal scenario. I mean, let's face it, it's still not clear, where things go with Tavares, after the season. Some of the players that have been mentioned, do have contracts beyond this year. And so if they're making that kind of trade, if you're getting someone that you kind of view as maybe he's the number 3 on this team, but he could play the number 2 in an injury situation, or if they're shaking things up to get more out of the lineup. I mean, I do think that they want to get an upgrade there versus just another guy, but that's going to come at a cost, and we don't yet know how many of those players are available. I mean, even some of the names out there, even Braden Shen has been a new one that Dregs tossed out there last week on Insider Trading. I mean, he's sort of softly out there. He's got a no trade clause. It's not as though St. Louis has got to a point where they're 100% dealing him. I think that they're open to listening and seeing what's there, but the price is big. He comes with a contract. As much as I'm sure from a high level, the Leafs love the player, it might not fit, what they need to do now. And so, it's hard to paint a rosy picture, I guess, today that, there's going to be 5 or 6 clear upgrades available at the deadline. I mean, that may end up being the case, but, I do know with the logjam we have, especially in the Eastern Conference, the trade market is still taking shape here, and I think the Leafs are trying to figure out, navigate their way around that.
CJ, is it a festive mood amongst media members at the Four Nations? Are people ready to talk about stuff at different pubs, about the different teams and rosters and strategies?
It's probably that kind of environment. I just got in here late last night, so I haven't indulged in I just did some work today, but certainly lots of people in town for the tournament. And the one thing I mentioned to you guys last week that I'm sticking to, I'm telling you the players are fired up for this. The only prediction I have is the guys care. I don't know what the fans are going to do. I don't know how many tickets are going to sell. I don't know what the view is going to be from afar for this tournament yet. But the players involved are pretty dialed in on it. I think that after such a long layoff since that last World Cup, a lot of these guys have been chomping at the bit to get there. And so, the best players, you look at the top 6 for Canada after the line today, the top 6 for the U.S., it's full of guys, the Jack Hugheses, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, all kinds of these guys that haven't played in something like this for their country. And so I think the hockey's going to be good. Let's just see if everything else rises to meet the moment.
Well, in terms of that Canadian lineup, first day of practice, what stood out to you in terms of the lines and how John Cooper is going to play this?
Well, kind of interesting. He moved McKinnon to the wing, right, and is playing him with Sidney Crosby. I think that's what they would have done had we went to the Olympics in 2022. At that time there was talk of doing the all Nova Scotia line with Brad Marchand as a third member. Clearly a couple years later, Marchand's probably better suited in this event as a bottom sixer for Canada. You've got Mark Stone with that trio. I mean, a nice landing spot for Mitch Marner. Playing with Connor McDavid and Sam Reinhart on the top line. I mean, it's always, especially among the forwards, an embarrassment of riches for Canada. I mean, this is a pretty stacked group. But, the difference with this tournament that you get even sometimes with some others is, there's not an exhibition game. There's not really a training camp. Today's the first practice. There's one tomorrow, and then they play Wednesday night. And because of the way the tournament works, you play 3 games, and you have to have one of the 2 best records to go to the final. There's not a lot of room for tinkering around. I mean, even John Cooper said today he hasn't he's not naming his goalie yet publicly, but he said he's not going to. Basically, they're not going to toggle between goaltenders. I mean, the only circumstance that happens is if there's an injury or if they get blown out, I would think. And so the plan is to kind of ride, I would think, with the lines you saw today, again, assuming everyone's healthy. And then, they're going to start one of those three, really two. To me, it's probably Bennington or Hill getting the start. And the plan is to stick with them because there's just not a lot of time to tinker with things.
CJ, first of all, my apologies for our board op JP sneezing there. He will be fired by the end of the show.
Unacceptable.
But unacceptable. Don't you think Cooper's just like, I got to get a flow here and get these best guys out there? Like, the bottom guys, unfortunately, they're just not going to play a lot. Like, he's got to get a lot of McDavid, a lot of McKinnon, a lot of Braden Point, and just try to overwhelm the opposition.
Yeah, and I think it's actually set up well to do that, quite frankly. I mean, look, they don't play till Wednesday. All these guys are in shape. I mean, other than, I guess, some injury questions or whatever about Crosby. But, everyone's in the middle of the season here. They won't have played, most of them, since Saturday to Wednesday. Then they don't play again till Saturday and then Monday and then potentially next Thursday. I mean, there's no back-to-backs in the tournament. I think it's set up, really well to ride your top players very heavily. And I would imagine that's what Team Canada will do. Now, if they get a lead or something in one of these games, if they're up 3-0 early in Wednesday's game, that's probably ideal to maybe roll the lines a little bit more. But I'm with you, O-Dog. I mean, it's going to be largely, if we were talking about the forwards, the top six guys. Obviously, Cale Makar is going to play a ton on the blue line for Canada, and I think you'll see double shifting. And you're right, it might be a few guys playing 6, 7, 8 minutes, even though they're all stars otherwise, or they're go-tos on their NHL teams. But I think that they're going to want to ride or die with the best players in the world, which, while we might identify what we perceive our weaknesses or holes in Team Canada as a whole, I mean, you can't argue that the top end of the team is, it's better than any other team here. They got 3 Conn Smythe winners on their top power play unit right now. There's just nothing else like this in the tournament. Now, other teams might be deeper or stronger or get better goaltending or something. It doesn't guarantee you win, but I think that they're going to want to play those top guys as much as they absolutely can.
Yeah, you look at the Americans, the defense pairings are absurd. It's just crazy. Like, you got Slavin with Fox, you've got Werenski with McAvoy. They're loaded. Like, they're absolutely loaded.
Dude, that's a loaded team, man. You can't. No other way around. Yeah,
they're loaded. Like, there's no denying that. Yet it looks like Matthews is going to play with Gensel and Jack Hughes. Which is an interesting line. Like, they're moving Hughes to the wing. Of the 3 Leafs that are there, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, who would you expect to be most comfortable in this tournament, and who will be relied upon the most by their team, in your opinion?
I think of those 3 guys, probably Nylander. Sweden doesn't have, obviously lots of really good Swedish hockey players in the NHL, but Nylander's meant to be their frontline scorer. Like, he and, we've seen him do it for stretches, certainly as a Leaf. Last year, this season, the guy's had seems like every year he scores, a few more goals, gets a little bit better. But, when he's pulling on his country sweater, he's got to be the best player. I think there's some expectation like that for Matthews. He's wearing the C, but he's got other guys around him that if, the first 2 games of this tournament, Patsy hasn't scored a goal yet. It's not like the heat will necessarily be turned up because I think that there's other players in the lineup to insulate him. And I'd say the same for Marner. Now, Marner's skating with McDavid, so, given the way he's a playmaker, he's there to produce offense primarily. But I think Nylander probably has the most sort of individual expectation among those 3 Leaf stars that are at this event. But all of them are in a position, of course, where they're frontline players for their countries.
So outside of this tournament, it sounds like, the GMs and all that are kind of put the trade chatter potentially on the back burner. Coming out of the tournament, is there a team that maybe you've heard behind the scenes is either on the fence or been very active as to either making some trades one way or the other? Who could be a surprise team for you?
I think a big one for me is Boston, because I really think that they could go down the road where potentially they're looking at being even, somewhat of a selling team. You just look at pending UFA there, like Brad Marchand, like would they truly ever consider dealing him? At this point, I have no reason to believe that they're going to do that, but I don't think it can be entirely ruled out. And they have some other veteran players, whether it's Brandon Carlo or, they have Trent Frederick, who's a pending UFA. I mean, I just think that if they choose to, start a process, even if it's just a little bit of a retool on the fly, that they could put some pretty intriguing names into the mix trade-wise. And right now, a lot of teams don't know what they're going to do. I mean, the Islanders are another one that have some names. No one really knows what Lou Lamoriello's up to, and I'm not just talking about the media in this case. It sounds like other teams aren't quite sure, what he's going to do with some of his guys. And really a lot of the action, I think, Noodles, will be around those Eastern Conference teams, that are kind of clustered together. I mean, it seems like a team like Montreal is probably selling, with the way they've sort of fallen off a little bit after that hot stretch. I think they're thinking bigger picture as much as they would, still want to hope that their players can find a way towards the playoffs. But, that the 2 weeks on the other side of this tournament are going to be crazy, I think, for trade activity. Because while I don't expect deals to come down during this Four Nations break, there's a lot of GMs, even the GMs that are here watching this tournament and are part of USA Hockey or Hockey Canada. I mean, those guys are still thinking about their teams. So I think that there'll be a lot of chatter during these 2 weeks about what might happen and what everyone's thinking, a chance to maybe take a rare breather in season to look at your group and, make some hard calls. And basically the tournament ends, February 21st or 20th, I guess, in Boston. And then you got a 2 week sprint to the trade deadline from that point.
Yeah, it's decision time for a lot of teams. I mean, there's certain teams we know where they're going, either end of the spectrum, but it's a lot of teams right there in the middle, and a few of them are Canadian at this point. All right, CJ, we'll let you get back to it. Appreciate you doing this. We'll do it again next week.
All right, boys. Sounds good.
Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider from the Four Nations Face-Off. And, yeah, Montreal, to me, it's unfortunate. Like, the Leafs, they're up 3-0 against the Leafs, and then the Leafs come back and beat them. Then they beat the Rangers, I think, the next day, and then Tampa on the Tuesday. And I thought, okay, they've righted the ship. The Leaf game's irrelevant, and now they've lost, I think, every game since.
Yeah.
And they've just plummeted out of it. Boston doesn't look great. Like, if I'm the Leafs right now, obviously you feel good about where your team is, where they're going. It's not a juggernaut. They're on pace for like 101 points. It's not going to be some phenomenal season. But really, outside of Washington, no one is having a phenomenal season in the East. Really, I look at it, I think you just want to avoid Florida in the first round, and you feel okay about any other matchup. Doesn't mean you're going to win it any other matchup.
Why not just big picture thinking, like, if there's any year where you could kind of – maybe that's the way to look at the trade deadline. It's like, why not just go all in and just try to put together a heater unit, because maybe this is the year in the East, like, to try to get to a final. Florida's obviously really good. Washington's really good. But Washington doesn't have a bunch of proven people.
They don't terrify you in the playoffs.
No,
they don't.
Like,
great regular season. If
they had a great regular season to get in last year, and New York Rangers dummied them in the first round.
I think Carolina's, we got to watch them. They're going to still do moves.
They're good.
They're going to get a goalie.
They got to start scoring, man. Rantanen's got to figure it out there. Like,
the other guy going the other way, he's on fire.
Takes time to settle in. I'm not too worried.
I hear you. I'm not selling my stock in Rantanen. I'm just saying it's a fact. He hasn't had a good start, and they haven't been scoring.
New environment. That guy didn't see that trade coming. It's probably a big shock to the system. Mm-hmm. You're right. I see a lot of teams. I see them live, almost every night, and there isn't a clear-cut one. Florida deserves to be one.
I could see saying we're going to get going down the stretch here.
Well, and I could see Florida making some under-the-radar moves to add a little bit where they thought they lost because of the offseason and guys moving on. They let the young guys play. They kind of keep it in-house and where they are in the standings, but then at the deadline make some maneuvers. Like I think there's still going to be a lot of jockeying for position. I don't know. Montreal, I was saying, their start, I didn't think they were as bad as their start. I didn't think they were as good as that 13-2 run. And now they're, heading back down. I think they're an 84-point team. They're playing meaningful minutes here down the stretch, but not a playoff team. And, the Islanders are the one that kind of were out of it and then won, 8 of 9?
Yeah.
Like that
feels like it. And now they've lost 2 in a row. I think that like Sorokin was playing at a ridiculous rate. Detroit. I don't know. We don't have the answer. That's the beauty of it, is that we still got a bunch of games, and it's going to jockey and go up and down. But again, if you're the Leafs, I do think Florida's starting to come on, and Florida feels like a team that by the playoffs you're going to be scared of them. But you got to play them. Like if it's in the first round or second round or whatever. But I think if you play Tampa, if you play Ottawa, if you play Detroit, you play any other team in the first round, the Leafs are going to be comfortable. Doesn't mean they're going to win. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying I think you could paint that picture that they would be comfortable in a situation like that. Florida could be different, but if you're going to get through the first round, you're probably playing Florida in the second round. You're probably going to have to slay that dragon at some point. But it's there for them. And the Leafs are a veteran team. They've got to do the same thing. With 27 games to go, go 18-9. And don't just backdoor in or kind of like get going down the stretch and feel good about your game and figure it out.
I still think there's lots of jockeying. The Tampa's a good team. Like they might end up challenging Florida. Like the Leafs can challenge Florida. Like it's a 3-point spread with 2 games in hand. Like nothing is set in stone there. Like that's when you're looking at it. Nothing is set in stone in the Atlantic, and it's going to be jammed up the whole time.
You sound like Lou Brown from the Indians.
I got vodka voice. You guys know. I'm trying my best to grind through it. I was at the Waste Management.
Yeah, what was it like down there at the Waste Management?
Did you watch one shot of golf? Like, did you watch any golf? You were at the Waste Management golf tournament.
Yeah, we were in a box on 16. So wherever that is, like that
wherever that
weird,
is, one of the most famous holes on tour.
And I don't know. I'd hear the cheering, and I'd be like, okay, who's that? You're kind of leaning over.
Grillo probably hit that hole-in-one. Noodles was probably there.
No, we weren't there. That was the day before. I was there Saturday.
Noodles was watching Buffalo at Columbus on his phone.
Yeah. I did watch a little hockey. I'm not going to lie.
Thomas and Scheffler rolled through. All the Canadians did a great job. They all made the cut. It was awesome.
I met a guy last night named Gary Woodward. Is that his? Gary
Woodland, U.S. Open winner.
Yeah, sorry, Woodland. Yeah.
Jerry
awesome
Woodland.
Guy. Oh my God, that guy was such a great guy. His caddy was on the karaoke singing, and it was great. Like there was
shout out to Gary Woodland.
It wasn't his caddy. There was some other caddy in there that was singing up a storm, but it was great. No, honestly, I thought the voice held up here for the most part.
Yeah,
great. Quick turnaround.
No sneezing.
Well,
I want to apologize to our listeners and our viewers. Play it for them. This is JP, our board op. It's unforgivable. Go ahead and play it, JP. Your mistake.
Well, kind of interesting. He moved McKinnon to the wing, right, and was playing him.
Yeah, it was like a half sneeze, and obviously that was me. And if you listen to my question, I was fighting it. Like I was trying to get to the end.
Didn't you have the off button ready?
Yeah, I guess I didn't touch it. I didn't put it down completely. It was 90% down.
Well, kind of interesting. He moved McKinnon to the wing, right, and was playing him.
Because it was a massive sneeze, so it actually did muffle a lot of the sneeze. But the previous question, I was trying to get to the finish line, and I thought I was going to basically pass out.
It's one of my biggest fears, like a big trade deadline or like a Leaf kind of heavy segment talking about personnel or something, and you sneeze, because I could sneeze and snot could be flying everywhere, and it'll be all over the desk. And
make it uncomfortable for everybody, and then it throws everyone off.
Like you got to go to commercial immediately. Somehow.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And people, when they sneeze, some of them, like some yell, some make a big noise.
I got a loud, obnoxious sneeze. That probably wouldn't surprise anyone. But
me too. I could also go in a sneezing fit and sneeze 12 times in a row.
That is equally as concerning.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the one sneeze you can handle. If it's a serial sneezing, you're like, dude, we're trying to work here.
Yeah.
Like stop it.
Well, kind of interesting. He moved McKinnon to the wing, right, and was playing him.
Fought through it though.
And CJ's a professional.
I forgot to tell you, my buddy, he said, tell Hayes and O-Dog, your man made $8K on Dietrich. So
he had a future on Dietrich to win the
200
tournament?
play at 40-1 after first round.
Wow. That's a bit, man, those are huge odds, 40-1 even after the first round, because obviously he shot low, and the books were still like, there's no way this guy's
everybody
gonna win
thought this guy was going to puke it away.
I thought he'd fade.
Yeah.
Like, full disclosure, we all did. Oh, you and I were texting. We're like, Scheffler probably wins this thing, or Thomas, or Spieth.
Yeah.
And it's too bad because the tour, you can't catch a win. Like, it's a big, fun tournament, and Thomas Dietrich runs away with it.
Yeah, you needed Spieth and Thomas and Scheffler and somebody. I don't know. That's what they're looking for anyway. But you can't
control
fault these guys. Yeah, these guys are playing good golf.
They're allowed to play.
Scotty Scheffler got outplayed by a Monday qualifier yesterday.
Yeah.
A Monday qualifier played better than Scotty Scheffler. That's right. The sport.
It was pretty cool. I will say this. My understanding, in past years, it's been goons and, a circus.
Oh, they tighten the screws this year.
A lot tighter, but it felt like the Kentucky Derby. Like everyone was dressed up. Like it was it's a scene there.
It's a party, man. Yeah,
and
it's a real
money.
party.
Like those boxes apparently with they have 200 boxes in that on 16. They go for $200,000 each.
Yeah.
It's insane. The amount of money thrown around there.
That's big cash, man. That's big
crazy
cash.
Crazy
because it's such a big tournament for that. And you look at what the RBC Canadian Open does. Like they're trying to mix the two, right? Like they're trying to be a party, but it's an open, it's a tournament. But a lot of tournaments are taking from what Waste Management has established. Create a hole in particular that draws a lot of people in, that can create viral moments.
And that rink hole does get a lot of street cred. I was listening to Aaron Oberholzer talking today, and he brought it up. Like, it gets street cred amongst people on the tour.
Big time. It's a brilliant idea.
It is.
The rink hole is something. Rory McIlroy mentioned it when he was talking about coming up. He's like, I'll be there, and they got the rink hole, and it's awesome. Like, it's a big signature moment. And that'd be great to see a hole-in-one there, right? It'd be great to see a hole-in-one at some point at the rink hole. You talk about people going crazy in viral moments.
Shorten it up then. Shorten the hole up a little bit. Every time I played the rink hole or seen it, been around it, it's like 178, 191.
Yeah.
Make it 145 yards.
Just for one day.
Yeah,
that's all
one day.
Saturday, make it a 140-yard little pitch and putt, and let guys throw darts at it. It's still gonna have teeth, and guys are gonna make mistakes, but I agree. I'd love to see that happen. But the tour, I'm sure, runs a lot of that as well, like what the yardages should be, what the greens set up like. All right, something to chew on still to come. Our best bets coming up as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP, where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. So fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. We've been asking people online, on Twitter and on Instagram, what is dominating the Super Bowl group chat? What was dominating last night? I'm a little bit surprised, I got to be honest. I guess, this speaks to anecdotal evidence, me and my buddies, us. But we've been asking people, Eagles dominance, Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, or the Brady Mahomes GOAT debate. And Eagles dominance is dominating on Twitter and on Instagram.
Really?
I'm not surprised at that. Everyone I talked to today, everyone agreed that was a beatdown that they've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like, they have the idea behind any sporting event is to try to expose something to give yourself an advantage. And I don't know, well, I'm not my Part C, which, by the way, Part C, I love you and thanks for everything this year. He knows what to like the X's and O's of what the Eagles picked out and said, we're going to expose that and we're going to crush them. And I don't know if it was Dan Patrick that said that the response, it was like, did they even make an attempt to respond to anything? Because it was no different, if not worse, in the second half.
Yeah, it is amazing that Andy Reid
that was
and
an
company,
ass beating, man. Like they were trying to kill Mahomes, and they got to him every time.
Every time. And there was some confusion at times on the sideline where Andy Reid looked like he had no idea what was going on.
Dude, he had I thought it was Randy Carlisle, Scrabble face.
Yeah, which is wild because he's Andy Reid, and he's won a ton, and he's always in control. And, I guess, you know what this also tells me is that people were looking for something different. And, that gets back to our conversations about me wanting the Bills to get there or the Lions or whatever.
Right.
It's, the Chiefs, you either love the dynasty or you hate the dynasty, and it's incredibly compelling. And, again, I'm a bit surprised by the results because I would have leaned Brady, Mahomes, all that because it takes up so much oxygen. And seeing Mahomes play like that and get beat like that, to me, was just fascinating. I couldn't believe it. I never expected that to happen.
And it seemed like the crowd, Hayes, it was a big-time pro-Eagles crowd.
Big
Somebody
time.
brought up the point yesterday. Try supporting your team through like for all the fans that were like, we're going to the Super Bowl, we're getting tickets, doing that for a third year in a row, probably not happening.
No, you're not. You just can't do it, man. You're not going to every single one, So Eagles fans showed up.
I will say Kendrick Lamar, like that made a lot of noise. It was people either loved it or hated it. There was no in between.
No, there was no in between. You're right about that. No one was like, it was all right. I'll check that out.
Yeah, like it was like, God, I hated that, or God, he killed it. Like I just.
My only takeaway from it, I'm not going to be some old white guy that was like, I didn't like it, because there was deeper meaning to it where his fans knew what was going on. I just felt old because I was trying to decipher what it was all about. I was like, I don't know these songs. I don't know what he's up to. And there's Serena Williams, and I don't know the lady that just wheeled in there to sing with them.
Yeah,
I'm
that
out
was
of touch with it.
Very clear that we're all completely out of touch with what's going on. And that was true, and I had the same experience. I'm like, I don't really know what's going on here. And it's tough, like, because his style is very consistent, and it's fast, and it's
wordy,
and it was kind of like I don't, it was difficult to follow, like, and that's the truth. And if you're it's the same way whenever you have anyone that becomes the Super Bowl halftime. There's very few people that can drag out everybody. It's very difficult to be so big and so popular where it meets the masses' expectations. But if you're gonna get to a specific artist or band that is not mainstream necessarily, or a quote-unquote pop star from the last 20 years, that's what you're going to get. People that love them, love it. And people that, it's not even about hating them. It's just like, if you're not a fan, you're like, I don't know any of the songs, so I don't even know what I'm following here.
Who would you get to counter next year to kind of bring everybody back on board?
I'm
talking
reasonable.
Like a Bon Jovi, where
that's
everybody.
Where I was gonna go.
But that's out of touch too, though.
I didn't say Bon Jovi. I said a Bon Jovi type.
Out of touch with younger people.
But
I agree.
that's where you can't win, because you get Kendrick Lamar, who's not young. Kendrick Lamar's been out for like 15
Don't even
years.
talk. You know who I got. I got McCartney, dude.
He was
you
awesome.
You can't even talk about out of touch.
I know that, and I understand. I get it. I get that would have been out of touch at that point. You cannot aim for the 20-year-old, and you can't aim for the 70-year-old. So the answer is, who is 40, 45 years old, that's going to get it.
I think you toss Phil Collins out there and let him rip.
Phil Collins is the answer, dude. Come on.
I can feel it in the air tonight. It's a slam dunk and a no-brainer.
You know what's happened, though, with some of these bands? They've had a resurgence. Like Blink-182 is all of a sudden like popular again. Like they had a resurgence because their songs are played in stadiums and stuff like that, in sporting events. So I could see something like that. I don't know if that, I'm not saying that particular band, but I could see it being a resurgence band that was very popular in the past and is popular
resurgence
again.
Band at the Super Bowl is a tough pick, man. If it doesn't fly.
Okay, so Beyonce was on there. How many? Pink. There's been Lady Gaga.
Coldplay.
Like you've had Coldplay. Coldplay would be a prime example of a resurgence band, would it not?
I guess so, but they were pretty massively popular in selling out stadiums and stuff. I don't know.
Right, but what, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah,
but
I guess
people
so.
now would. Yeah. That's my saying. Resurgence is the wrong word. They've always been popular, but they may have not put out new material.
Exactly. They don't
recently.
Tour anymore or anything.
Right.
But that's the thing. Like Coldplay was a massively huge pop band.
So you're looking at U2, the Stones, people like that,
Stones
where it's like, okay,
too old now. That's the thing. Like, you
what
can't
if
go to
Britney Spears
Springsteen
cleaned her act up and wheeled out there and put on a set?
Britney Spears? Ooh.
I think if she cleaned it up.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I think that is that's how I would approach it, is what works in Vegas. That's what I would bring to the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, who can sell out night after night on the Vegas Strip? That's someone with mass appeal. That's someone where people roll through town and they're like, wow, Adele is playing. I got to go see that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. And like U2, Open the Sphere. Yes, U2 is a band that everyone knows. You like it or you don't, but you're like, I know that song. And let's see what they do. That's an interesting background. Here's a cameo from Phil Collins coming out doing a, that's where Phil comes in.
Maybe it's a super band, though. What was it? It wasn't that long ago. Wasn't it Dr. Dre and Snoop?
And that was a phenomenal show.
That was an unbelievable
That was
show.
in L.A. at SoFi.
It was. And that's showing my age. I loved hip-hop back in the day, and that was my thing, was Dr. Dre and Snoop and 50 Cent and, that kind of stuff. Modern hip-hop and rap is not my thing. So I'm just not going to be able to know what's going on.
I got one for you. This might hit all the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Gord just sent me it. Everybody loves the Chili Peppers.
I don't know. No? They came out in the 80s, man. That's the thing.
90s, wasn't it? 80s or 90s? Yeah,
early
you're right.
90s, I guess. Early 90s.
But people know their songs.
They do know their songs. They're a band that's been around forever that people are familiar with. That's for sure.
I don't know.
Chili Peppers.
It comes back to, Brian, you were right. You're never going to hit
everyone's got a different taste.
Everybody.
That's music for you.
That's the truth.
That's the whole thing. Like you get it. And especially that's why like the pop singer or pop show is going to land more often than like I said off the top, rap, country, heavy metal. Like the fans of those artists, people are going to be like, this is amazing. This is so cool. Wow, this is amazing. But people that aren't into it are really not into it. They're like, I don't want to listen. Like Morgan Wallen's a hugely popular guy right now.
Yeah.
And if you're into country, you're more than likely love Morgan Wallen. I guarantee you half the country can't stand the guy.
Country music, period.
Period. And would hear him and be like, this is awful. Every song sounds the same. It would be the same reaction. Same reaction. It would be like, I don't want this. Who is this guy? What is he doing? What is he talking about?
All right.
So you need something in the middle. You need a pop star in the middle.
Pearl Jam.
I don't know, man.
I'm getting suggestions from all my buddies here.
Pearl Jam. I love Pearl Jam.
One.
Well, someone had a great.
I could turn back the clock and I could just rip a John Bon Jovi Super Bowl halftime.
No. Dude, it's
why?
Not 1993.
Well, he's got gray hair right now. Do you see his salad right now?
Dude, don't talk to me about gray hair. I had McCartney. Do I need to put out a hashtag?
So exactly. You should learn from that and realize that Bon Jovi's not the guy.
I'm going to go through YouTube clips of McCartney in Jacksonville because I remember being so pissed when he wheeled out there on a piano.
Listen, I understand what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
What,
I got it for you. My wife has come in and she's hit a grand slam. Grand slam walk-off. Ed Sheeran.
Oh, yeah.
Ed
Everybody
Sheeran.
loves Ed Sheeran.
Everyone knows Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Ed Sheeran.
Aaron Hayes from the top turnbuckle.
Grand slam walk-off.
He's a multi-talented guy. Like he sets up, that Shiver song. He does the whole
brings
thing
in
by
different
himself
people, right? Other people. Hey, here comes this person. There comes that. And then all of a sudden, you got like different. That's your answer right there.
There
Brilliant.
it is. If they don't make it happen, they're crazy.
Ed Sheeran's your guy next year, and have him bring out the can. Because you know what people love is they do love when a surprise.
So.
Someone comes out, it's like, oh, I can't believe they're out there with them,
Remind me where it is next year. Where's the Super Bowl?
Are they back in L.A. next year, or is it in Miami maybe next year?
But so you bring out somebody from
it's in San
there.
Fran. It's in San Fran.
So you have Ed Sheeran, and then you bring out some other Ed Sheeran and friends.
People from the Bay Area. There you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
What's Gord Miller's buddy here that gave him the nod from Toronto here? The good-looking kid.
Oh, what was his name? Oh, man.
I love that kid. Shawn Mendes.
Shawn Mendes. Yeah, Shawn Mendes.
You bring him out with Ed Sheeran. There's lots of people. I think it would be interesting, though. Maybe Taylor Swift would slide in there.
She's never going to do it, man. She's too big for the Super Bowl. Like, in reality, she's too big for it.
Yeah, you're right.
She's
true.
Maybe she'd do it in 15 years. Like, if she kind of fades away and doesn't do anything for a while, maybe, but we'll see. All right. There you go.
Those are good.
Very good stuff. I think we accomplished exactly what the NFL has to do here.
I met a guy named Chase Rice last night.
Okay.
Country singer. Really good-looking guy. Like, I didn't know he was like a big star. He was on karaoke last night, too.
He was singing karaoke as a country star.
Got up and sang. Yeah.
Was he singing his own songs?
No, he was singing others. Like he just
come on, dude. People don't do that, man. That was a rookie question.
How often does the guy karaoke? Period. If you're a country like a rock star, how often do you think? You know, David Lee Roth was like, "Give me the."
That's
mic.
just a part of the gig. Rock stars they're not singing their own stuff.
David Lee Roth's doing Jumper.
Wouldn't that be great? You're buckled at some party, like I think that's David Lee Roth.
Go ahead, jump
the night away. You're like, okay,
singing Panama.
All right, best bet still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Oh, yeah, this thing is going to pop, man. Ed Sheeran at the halftime show, San Fran next year. We get credit if it happens, right?
What about Philly Collins wheeling in for like a duo, man? Philly Collins in the air tonight with Ed Sheeran. What a mashup.
You're so committed to Phil Collins.
In the air tonight
exclusively in the air tonight with Ed Sheeran. That would be great. Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the Lakers to cover. Luka 25-plus points. Luka 3-plus made threes tonight. It just feels like Hollywood. It feels like Luka makes his debut. Yeah. Everyone feels good. I am curious to see how he mixes with LeBron. I'm very curious to see how that works. But I think for night one it goes very, very well, and I think the NBA is certainly hoping for that. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Bet the NBA live from first basket to final whistle with FanDuel. Please play responsibly. 19 plus. Physically located in Ontario. Ron Burgundy on the way out there. Okay, good stuff today. Good stuff. Everyone all around. And thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
Pro Athletes Only tomorrow, 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.